Kane, Public Programs and Visitor Services Coordinator with the Museum of the Grand Prairie, part of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. And I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, tuning in tonight for our final program in our annual Garden Speaker Series this year. Final program tonight. And we're going to learn how to make your own tea garden, how to start your own tea garden at home. I want to give a special thanks to MJ Oviatt for tuning in tonight. For joining us tonight to be our presenter, talking all about tea gardens in just a few moments. I'll bring MJ on. Before we get there, I did want to go over a few housekeeping items, promote some upcoming events, and let you know what is happening all throughout Museum of the Grand Prairie and Champaign County Forest Preserve District. First and foremost, if you haven't done so already, down below in the comment section, let us know where you're watching from tonight by typing it into that comment section down below. Have some folks writing in where they're watching from tonight. Brittany tuning in from St. Louis. Thanks for tuning in, Brittany. Tony from St. John, Indiana. Danielle, all the way from the UK, the United Kingdom. That's awesome. Overseas tuning in tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Familiar face Judy tuning in from Ogden. Good to see you, Judy. Joan from Mahomet, right where the museum is located in Mahomet, Illinois. Lynn tuning in from all the way in Jackson, Georgia. Peggy tuning in from Peoria. Tamara tuning in from Savannah, Georgia. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, Tamara. Jody from Mahomet and Amanda from Decatur. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much for letting us know where you're watching from. Got folks from all around Central Illinois, the state of Illinois, all across the country, and even folks from overseas. That's awesome. That's the beauty of these virtual programs. You get to reach far and wide, which is really great. My mom tuning in from Rantoul as well. Hey, Mom. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Also, feel free to click that share button so you can watch alongside your friends, so we can have as much fun as humanly possible tonight. Click that share button so we can all join in on the fun, learn how to make our own tea gardens this evening. For those of you who don't know much about the Museum of the Grand Prairie, Champaign County Forest Preserve District, Museum of the Grand Prairie opened up originally as the Early American Museum in 1968. And our current mission is to collect, preserve, and interpret the cultural and natural history of Champaign County and East Central Illinois for all visitors, all folks in Central Illinois. Champaign County Forest Preserve District is a collection of 7 beautiful forest preserves located here in Champaign County in East Central Illinois. We also have 2 educational facilities, including our museum, as well as our sister facility, the Homer Lake Interpretive Center at Homer Lake Forest Preserve. We have the Kickapoo Rail Trail, a multi-purpose trail that will eventually stretch from Urbana all the way to Danville, Illinois, and then also a golf course. So there's lots to do throughout the Champaign County Forest Preserve District, as well as with the Museum of the Grand Prairie. As I mentioned earlier, tonight's program is the fourth and final installment in our annual Garden Speaker Series, and the series is virtual for the first time ever this year. We began these programs back in January, and every month, January, February, March, and now here in May, we've had a monthly speaker present with the series, and our theme this year is How to at Home. With a large amount of time that everybody's been spending at home this past year, wanted to bring programs to you all focusing on how to garden in various ways within your own home or on your own property. These 3 great programs that happened previously, you can find those by clicking through videos on our Facebook and YouTube pages. We had one in January discussing how to design a garden to attract birds. We had another in February exploring the diversity of native plants in Central Illinois and how they can be used to make some beautiful garden spaces. And our third program that we had in March talked about how to make a garden to attract pollinators of all types. So check out those videos on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Other items coming up, the Museum of the Grand Prairie and Homer Lake Interpretive Center are open. We're open 1 to 5 at the Museum of the Grand Prairie, Tuesday through Saturday. So come on out and visit us, take in this great museum, lots of stuff to do. It's a free museum as well. Homer Lake Interpretive Center is open Tuesdays through Fridays from 1 to 5 p.m. Lots to do over there. They have some live animals even at Homer Lake Forest Preserve. So check those out if you're local. Excuse me. Few things that I want to let you know about also. We each season during the pandemic have been coming out with exploration activity guides. So in March, we came out, the Museum and Education Department came out with a spring exploration activity guide. And in just a few weeks, we'll be coming out with a summer exploration activity guide. These activity guides are free to be picked up at the Homer Lake Interpretive Center, at Homer Lake Forest Preserve, the Museum of the Grand Prairie at Lake of the Woods Forest Preserve, or the Campground Host Cabin at Middle Fork River Forest Preserve here in Champaign County. And they can also be downloaded off of our website at ccfpd.org. They're chock full of activities, encouraging you to get out and explore the spring season, looking for spring wildlife, spring wildflowers, what animals can you see in springtime. And in the summer, we'll be coming up with this summer exploration activity guide. Again, chock full of activities trying to give you things to do out in our beautiful forest preserves. So check those out by picking up a hard copy at those 3 locations I mentioned, or by finding it at ccfpd.org. Got another virtual program coming up. One of my colleagues is presenting on Wednesday, May 19th, streaming live on the Homer Lake Interpretive Center Facebook page and the Champaign County Forest Preserve District YouTube channel. It's going to be a program titled Fire, a Vital Tool for Land Management, where our Director of Natural Resources, Peter Goodspeed, is going to talk about how we use fire and how fire has been used historically to manage land. Talk about prescribed burns, smoke, and a number of other things, how fire can be used for good in our forest preserves. And then one last program to let you know about. On Saturday, May 22nd at 7 o'clock, we're partnering with CU Lockdown Trivia to bring you a local trivia event. It's going to include 4 rounds of trivia that we've helped CU Lockdown Trivia put together, with rounds focusing on local cultural history, local natural history, Abe Lincoln-related history, since we're in the land of Lincoln, and women's history, since we have a new exhibit at the Museum of the Grand Prairie that came out last year titled How Long Must Women Wait? Women's Suffrage and Women's Rights in Champaign County. It's free to participate. It's a Zoom event. You've got to register. So go to our Facebook page or our website to learn how to register for that event. And we are accepting donations, raising money for our Advancing Equity Fund at the Champaign County Forest Preserve District, trying to get all people out to see their forest preserves, and those funds can help do that. So again, that program is on Saturday, May 22nd, a virtual trivia program via Zoom at 7 o'clock that evening. Again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Got some more folks letting us know where they're watching from. John from Michigan City, Diane from Chicago, Connie from Wapella, Brittany says, wow, need to come visit. Yeah, would love to have you come visit Museum of the Grand Prairie or anywhere throughout Champaign County Forest Preserve District. Susan from Petoskey, Michigan, and another Susan from Champaign. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. And without further ado, enough of me talking. Let's bring on our special guest for the evening, MJ. MJ, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really looking forward to, learning how I can start a tea garden. My wife and I just bought our first home last fall, so I'm getting into gardening on my own now, and maybe I'll have to start a tea garden right on our own property. So really looking forward to it tonight. Before I turn it over to MJ, I just want to introduce you all to her. Again, wanted to thank her for joining us tonight. MJ Oviatt is a class of 2018 Master Gardener intern with a degree in environmental science from the University of Illinois. She has worked at the University of Illinois Student Sustainable Farm, Sola Gratia Farm, and Delight Flower Farm, growing vegetables, flowers, and even hemp for our community here in Central Illinois. She has a passion for sustainable living and enjoys a warm mug of Tulsi basil tea on a cool, rainy day. Yeah, she's got her tea right there as well. Or any day, yeah. So without further ado, MJ, I'll let you spill that tea. Let's give her a warm virtual welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
Appreciate the applause. I'm really excited to bring some knowledge to all of you folks tonight. I'm gonna turn on my PowerPoint presentation. This is a presentation that was formed by other Master Gardeners in the state, and I just edited a little bit for what I really know the best. I'm mostly a farmer. I come from a farming background, so I was excited to talk about things that we can eat in the gardens that we grow. So here is the PowerPoint. Okay, so tea gardens. First, we're going to talk about the history of tea.
Hey, MJ, we're not seeing the PowerPoint. Would you mind trying to reshare again? Oh wait, here we go. Got it.
There we go. Sorry.
Beautiful. Nope, all good. Take it away.
Okay, tea gardens. We're first going to talk about the history of tea from the camellia plant, and then we're going to talk about creating a space for you to enjoy tea. And then finally, we're going to spend most of the presentation talking about the plants that you can grow for using in tea, that you can grow basically in any part of Illinois, and from what everyone was saying in the chat, everywhere that people mentioned. So this is actually a photo of some Tulsi basil cuttings that I did that are sitting on my windowsill as we speak. I took this photo this afternoon. So I got them to root, so now I have 2 more Tulsi basil plants than I had before. Okay, so what is a tea garden? A tea garden is a place where you can enjoy tea, but it also can be a garden that grows plants used to make tea. Tea has been drunk for centuries, and the camellia plant is mostly what we think of when we think of tea. This is the bush-like plant that originated in Asia and is also grows in the Middle East, and it can be grown actually in the southeastern part of the United States. This is the plant that brings us black tea, green tea, and white tea. And like this slide says, an acre can give us about 1,500 pounds a year of tea, so that's a lot of tea leaves. And this is something that's been cultivated since 200 BC. There's a legend that says in 2737 BC, when Chinese Emperor Chen Yang was having his drinking water boiled, a few leaves from an overhead tree fell into his water. He liked the taste, and the word spread of the delicious new drink. And teas were supposedly introduced into Japan by Buddhist priests in 593 AD, and eventually to Europe by the Dutch in the early 1600s. We're going to talk about various kinds of traditional tea gardens, both from Eastern backgrounds, China and Japan, and then also England. But that's what we're going to go to next. So, like we said, it's a garden where tea can be enjoyed. And there's multiple components in every single tea garden design. There's usually always an enclosure space, a pathway to the enclosure, and then special features depending on what kind of tea garden you're creating. So the enclosure is also structurally significant. It creates a sense of place and privacy, and it can either be created visually with shrubs and things, or a physical enclosure such as a hut or a pergola. And then there's various types, so we'll go into each one of those. The English tea garden is very formal. Traditionally, servants would be taking care of these spaces and serving the tea to upper class English men and women in these huge gardens. The tea wouldn't be grown in these areas. England, you can't even grow the camellia plant, but it would be very floral in a space that tea could be enjoyed for tea time. Think the Queen of England, she definitely has a tea garden. But as for other gentlefolk in England, working folk, I would put myself in this category. There would be a cottage tea garden that you would grow. So this is a picture of Anne Hathaway's cottage. She was the wife of William Shakespeare, and she's known for having a beautiful cottage tea garden. There's this saying, right plant, right place. So they plant things, and you plant things in a cottage tea garden so that you're using all your space efficiently, and the sense is that you would be planting herbs and things that you would also eat or use besides it just looking pretty. The next one is a Japanese tea garden. These are very spiritual places. Traditionally, they're considered the link between humans and nature. And like I said, they're as much spiritual as they are physical. There's a beautiful Japanese tea garden in Portland, Oregon that can be visited. I've never been, but so I've heard. And there are 3 main characteristics of a Japanese tea garden. It's the 3 Friends of Winter, which you may have heard of if you've ever studied Japanese garden design. It's these 3 things. The first is pines. These are part of gardens to symbolize lasting maturity. Bamboo is to symbolize resilience. And then the plum is a symbol of rebirth and the triumph of spring over winter. So you can grow all of these things here in Illinois. Bamboo is particularly aggressive, so I would be very careful with where you plant that, and perhaps maybe leaving that one out if you're growing here in Central Illinois. And then also roses and rhododendrons are a traditional part of Japanese tea gardens. And then Chinese tea gardens also have main elements in them that include plants, rocks, architecture, water, and poetry. They are all throughout Asia or in China. And then there's 2 more that are more informal and not traditional to a culture. This one is just creating an herb tea garden. You can create a more formal knot garden, much like what you might see in an English tea garden. That's where you're making a design out of different boxes, either using stones or bricks or a boxwood to create a pattern like the one seen in the picture. Or even you can just create an herb tea garden with one raised bed. And you'll be very happy to see all those things grow anyways. And herbs are plants that often attract bees and different pollinators. So an herb tea garden, no matter what it looks like, will be of great benefit to you. And then finally, a container tea garden is the smallest kind of tea garden you can have, but you can still do a lot with it. I live in an apartment myself, and this is what I have to do. And I still manage to grow Tulsi basil, and I'm excited to grow some other things just in containers. And containers you can put anywhere that you get a lot of sun. So this is a kind of gardening that is accessible to a lot of different people, and it allows you to grow fresh food pretty much anywhere you want. So now this is into the main stuff that I really know the most about, and this is growing the herbs. So we're going to go over 20 plants that you can grow here in Central Illinois. You can definitely grow these up in Chicago. I aimed this presentation for 5B, which is what our zone is here down in Urbana-Champaign. But these are plants that will grow anywhere you all mentioned. So if you want to take a picture of this slide, this is what we're going to be going through, but this is just the list that we're going through starting now. Okay, number 1 is basil. If you might have noticed on the last slide, a lot of these are herbs that you might already be growing in your herb garden. You just didn't know that they were able to be used for tea. So basil might be one of those plants. I'm sure if you've grown anything, you maybe have tried growing one of the grocery store basil plants. I don't know how successful you've been, but it's one of the easier plants to grow. And there's a lot of different varieties that you can grow, and 2 of which make really nice teas. So like Pat already mentioned, Tulsi is my favorite tea. and that comes from the Tulsi holy basil plant. That is the basil plant that is most related to the native cultivar of India. So basil comes from India, and this is the one that's used for tea mostly there. The next one is Thai basil. Thai basil is often used in Thai cooking, but it can also be used in a really nice tea. Both of those have a lot of healing qualities, and if you've never had either of those teas before, these types of basil don't taste much like Italian basil, but they're fruity and spicy and really refreshing, and they're good for indigestion, actually. These are annual plants. You can put them outside. I would start, if you're down here or in Chicago, I would plant them outside at the end of May, and they'll grow for you for the whole summer season. All right, number 2, the second easiest thing to grow and most rewarding, albeit aggressive plant, is mint. Mint is perennial where we are, and it can be a ground cover if you want it to be, but I wouldn't recommend it. So if you want to grow mint for drinking, you can totally grow it in a container. It's very easy to do it that way, and that way it won't take over your whole entire garden. But when we say it takes over your whole entire garden, like, it does. Mint, you can grow a lot of different varieties. Peppermint is probably the most common. It tastes like gum, so it's really nice in an iced tea in the summertime. It's extra refreshing having that minty flavor, and highly recommend putting this in your garden. Also, I wouldn't buy this from seed. I would buy this as a transplant. The seed is not true to type. Okay, number 3 is calendula, also known as pot marigold. I don't think I put that on the slide, but if you've heard of pot marigold, this is it. This is something that we grew at the flower farm that I worked at Delight Flower Farm, and I loved it. It's really cute. If you ever have drawn a flower before, you probably have drawn one that looks like this plant. It's got a cute little circle middle with a lot of fluffy leaves around it. It usually comes in orange, white, red varieties, and you can actually use the flowers themselves, the heads, for a really good herbal medicinal tea. Calendula is anti-inflammatory. There are salves made for burns and cuts, but just drinking it is soothing to the body. It's a bright yellow color, and you can actually, drink the flowers or the petals, but it is a great thing to grow. It's really happy looking to have in a tea garden. And this is something that's very cold hardy, so you could plant this calendula for seed right now in your garden, or if you find transplants at a nursery, go ahead and plant that right now if you're in Central Illinois. All right, number 4 is chamomile. Chamomile is something that I'm sure a lot of you in the audience have probably already had as a tea before. I think this is the most common herbal tea that I know of, at least here in the United States. This is something I grew up drinking, and it's easily grown here where we live too. So it has the tiniest little white flowers, and there's 2 species actually. There's Roman and German. The German variety grows better, so far as I know. That's I'm not going to say that Latin name, it's way too hard, but both of them get to a height of 12 to 18 inches, but the Roman variety can be more of a ground cover for you. The German one will get to that height. And if you haven't had chamomile before, it is a classic for bringing on drowsiness. If you want to calm down, sleepy time tea is mostly just chamomile tea. It's a delicate flavor. If you steep it for long enough, it does have a slightly bitter taste to it. I've never actually grown chamomile, but I see the seeds at Menards all the time, so I really would like to try. All right, number 5. Number 5 is yarrow. Yarrow is an amazing medicinal herb. It is native, I believe, to the United States, and it's a perennial. So plant this and you'll be good to go for a while. It'll just keep coming back to you. It dies down to the ground in the winter, but pops right back up the next spring. Yarrow, I think a lot of people might not know, is edible and medicinal. Some might know it just as a pretty flower, but it is fairly bitter in a tea, but it's very good for your digestion and calming, and it is really good for those that get menstrual cycles and those that are pregnant. It soothes a lot of the pains that are part of life in that way. Okay, number 6 is borage. Borage is a cute little plant. It has blue flowers and fuzzy leaves and stem. This is something that I would highly recommend anyone grow in an herb garden, given that they're edible flowers, but you can also make a tea from the flowers. They have a cucumber refreshing taste to them, really good in iced tea, very refreshing in the summertime, or warm. They're an herbal medicine used if you have a cough. This is an annual. I would recommend either getting seed or transplants. It says that it self-seeds, but I haven't had that luck, so you'll probably have to replant this every year, but it gets pretty large and it's really pretty. So it's pretty and it's edible, so totally plant it. And then I just kept a quote in here from Herbal, which is a medieval herbal medicine book from medieval times, and in it said, "I, borage, bring always courage." So if you need a cup of courage, drink some borage. Okay, number 7 is fennel. Many might just be growing fennel in their vegetable gardens this year, but don't worry if it goes to seed, because you can use those seeds in a tea. Fennel grows really tall if you let it. It can get up to 4 feet tall. That's how it was at Soligradia Farm. When we grew fennel, those feathery fronds get real big. And fennel has that great, well-known licorice flavor, much like anise. You can use the leaves, but I think the seeds are great just because you can store those over the winter and use those for tea. Again, steeping like you would with everything else. And fennel is traditionally used for colds or calming effects. Okay, and then dill. Dill is another one of those things you might be growing in your vegetable garden, but I wanted to mention its medicinal properties as a tea drink. Tisane is another word for like a medicinal herbal tea drink. This is something that can be used to suppress hunger if you're trying to do that, or its sedative properties. I would mix in dill seed. You're using the seeds here. With other herbs just to kind of mask that dill flavor, but you might like it. Okay, number 9 is hops. Hops, you may be familiar with another drink that comes from this ingredient, that has this ingredient in it, and that's beer. But you can make a slightly healthier option with hops tea. And it's actually quite good for you. There's a ton of antioxidants and great immune boosting benefits to drinking hops brewed in a tea. So hops are pretty cool. They're a perennial vine in Illinois, and they can grow up to be 20 feet tall. So that can add a little bit of interest if you're trying to add some vertical height to your tea garden. And you'll want to, you can make tea out of the leaves, but I really recommend using the female cones, which is shown in the top corner, that will be the tastiest, most hoppy flavor that a lot of us might be used to already. Pick those off and use those in a tea. And again, it's perennial, so this will just come back to you every year. You won't have to replant hops. Okay, number 10 is hyssop. Hyssop, excuse me, is a plant that you may already have in your garden. I live right around, I live in Urbana and right near campus, and there's a ton of hyssop plants just landscaped into different gardens on campus because it is really, really easy to grow, and it's a perennial, and it's quite nice looking. So this is a plant that gets 2 feet tall. It's got really nice shape to it, very round. If you have it in your garden already, go ahead and just start harvesting some leaves and flowers from it. There's a lot of medicinal benefits to drinking hyssop tea. It's good for coughs and colds and bronchitis. And it's in the mint family, so it has a bit of a mint flavor. I haven't tasted hyssop, but I'm really excited to plant this soon. Okay, 11 is lavender. Lavender is a classic. I think this is something that probably comes up on other lists and what you should grow in your tea garden. This is a plant that is perennial. I do believe, and I've had success with English cultivars perennializing here in Central Illinois. So that means I'm having my lavender that I planted in the early spring and I let really establish itself. It came back the next year. Sometimes if it's a really cold winter, that might not happen, but I mentioned some cultivars here that would do well here in this colder climate, and you'll probably get your lavender again the next year, which is really great. And the Chicago Botanical Garden is the one that posted about these different cultivars: Munstead, John Davis, and Hidcote. So I believe they have good advice. Lavender is also really needs well-drained soil. It comes from an arid place, and it needs full sun. So make sure you're either amending your soil or finding a spot where water does not pool. So plant it there. Those that are from Georgia, you could probably plant any kind of lavender you want. Don't bother with these English cultivars if you don't want to. And then lavender tea is either made with the leaves or the flowers. You can just use the flowers, and just like you might use the essential oil to like smell to induce sleep, same with a tea. The flowers steeped in water will totally give you that calm and relaxed feeling. Okay, number 12 is lemon balm. Lemon balm is in the mint family. You can probably tell from the picture of it. It is perennial and is another one of those herbs that is ubiquitous around me. It grows in a lot of places on campus just because it's really happy to come up every year. It has a really nice shape to it. It's mounded, and it tastes really nice too. So this is definitely one that I would grow. It's a bit aggressive, so I read some varied responses to how aggressive this gets. So maybe you'll want to put this in a pot, but we can talk about that later if anyone opposes that idea. And then you make Melissa tea out of Melissa officinalis lemon balm. There's a lemony taste, and then medicinally, it is used to relieve tiredness. It has a calming effect, and it's really good for your headaches. Okay, 13 is lemon verbena, so different lemon type of plants, not related to lemon trees, but it has citrusy notes to it. This is a tender perennial, so unlike lemon balm, lemon verbena will not survive over the winter. You'll have to either plant it every year outside if you're in Central Illinois, or keep it in a container and bring it indoors over the winter to just hibernate and be near a sunny window. You can harvest the leaves, and these are very citrusy. This is like the most lemony flavor you're gonna get from something you can grow here in Illinois. So if you're for lemon tea, definitely grow lemon verbena. Okay, 14 is bee balm. Bee balm has a cool history behind it. Bee balm is used to make bergamot tea. It is native to North America. A lot of you may already have this in your garden for pollinators' sakes. It's called bee balm because it really attracts bees. So I plant it for that reason as well. But you can use the flowers to make a really nice dark red tea that's similar to the lemon balm in that it's got that citrusy scent to it. It's soporific, which means that it induces sleep and it's good for insomnia. And this is actually also known, this is the plant that's also known to make Oswego tea. And the history behind that is that Oswego tea was made by the colonists at the time of the Boston Tea Party in order to boycott British imports. So this is the plant that gave us tea when we wanted to throw the British tea into the harbor, which is pretty cool. Thank you, Oswego tribe. Really looking out for us. Okay, 15 is horehound. This is an herb that is very common in medicinal herb books, but I've never actually grown it. It is perennial to central Illinois, and it can get to a height of 1 to 3 feet. In that it's a medicinal, it has that bitter taste to it. It's known to be good for coughs and sore throats. Feel free to plant this one if you're looking for some more medicinal herbs. Okay, and then the next 3 that we're going to talk about are more culinary herbs that you may already be growing, and you may not have ever thought of making a tea out of them, but trust me, it's worth a shot. So the first one is rosemary. A lot of you may already know rosemary. It's a tender perennial. It doesn't like to grow outside in central Illinois. It won't perennialize here. So if you want to grow a big rosemary plant, you're going to have to put it in a container for it to survive over the winter. So bring that inside when it gets down to like the 40s. Otherwise, you can, I would plant it in a container. It also wants well-drained soil, so you can really make that happen in a container. But the bigger the container, the bigger your rosemary can get. You can use when it flowers, you can harvest the flowers for tea with rosemary. I haven't actually tasted this, but people have said that it's woody, piney, and peppery, which that sounds delicious. I am definitely going to make a tea out of this. Okay, and then next one, 17 out of 20 is sage. Sage is a long-lived perennial. This is something you can plant and forget about it. It's going to come back to you every year. It has beautiful gray-green leaves and then the lavender blue flowers as seen in the photo. Highly recommend planting sage because you can make tea out of it and you can use it in other culinary ways. You can use the leaves for tea, and it's really good for your sore throats. It has a calming effect, and it's very earthy. Okay, 18 is thyme. I love that I put this on the list because this is something that I really, really enjoyed drinking last winter. Thyme is perennial where we are. There's a ton of different kinds to grow. But what I'm most familiar with is just the thyme that is naturalized in the Mediterranean area. I believe that's just French or English thyme. If you're growing this already, please make a tea out of it. Just take a few sprigs, put it in a pot of water, bring the water to a boil, and then turn off the water. Let it steep for 10 minutes, and it is so refreshing. It's great if you have a headache. It's great if you just feel groggy. It's a really earthy, soft flavor, much like Tulsi tea. Like I said, I grew up drinking chamomile tea, and chamomile has a very intense bitterness to it that sometimes makes my stomach hurt. And thyme and tulsi are two teas that I have replaced chamomile with. Like, please go ahead, and even if you just see these on shelves in the grocery store, you don't end up growing these things, try out some of these herbal teas because they really do help with a lot of aches and pains. So this is thyme. Grow it in your tea herb garden. Okay, and then two more, and these are two plants that are much larger than the other plants on this list. So this is elder or elderberry. Sambucus canadensis is the variety, the species that's native to North America. Sambucus nigris is the European variety. So try to plant canadensis because it is native to this place. It can be classified as a small tree to a large shrub. I think it's more shrubby. There's not so much the trunk. It just has sprouts from the bottom. It loves to grow in moist, wet places. So it's nice to plant in somewhere that, you know, even puddles up so much because that's where this stuff normally grows. You may be familiar with elderberry as a immune boosting like superfood right now. It's really popular, but you can just grow it in your own backyard. So the flowers are really delicate. That's what's the picture showing. It's really nice in a tea. There's also, liqueurs made out of elderflower, but if you wait for the flowers to become berries, the berries are really good for you. They're really high in vitamin C. They're really good if you feel a cold coming on. Drinking a tea made with this like really tart berry is really energizing and a boost for your immune system. And then last but not least, number 20 to grow in your tea garden is the linden tree. A linden tree produces small flowers and new leaves in the springtime. And traditionally in Eastern European countries, and I've learned about this in Turkey, these countries, the people there harvest a lot of the flowers and the leaves from these trees to use for a calming tea. And the bark is also included in that. So if you're thinking about planting a tree and you love tea, I would highly recommend planting a linden tree. It's also a really beautiful tree. And you can make tea out of it. So it's similar to chamomile. It's very calming. It's really, the taste is very, very similar. It's very aromatic, and you can harvest a ton of it from a mature tree. Like, you could make a business out of it probably. Okay, and then I realized that I forgot to mention basics of steeping. The general rule of thumb when it comes to making tea, I'm going to go over this before I go over that, is that if you're using fresh herbs, use 3 times more fresh herbs than dried material for tea. And you're going to want to use water that is just below boiling. You do not actually want the water to be at boiling temp. You want it right before it's boiling, and steep to your own liking. If you really want that medicinal benefit of these herbs, steep for like 10 minutes or more. But if you just want the taste, honestly, 3 to 4 minutes. That's what I do with Tulsi tea. Okay, and then I have some honorable mentions because there are so many herbs out there, and I just want to name a few on here in case you've heard of these and you were hoping I'd be going over them. But some things you can buy at nursery are angelica, roses, tarragon, rhodiorum, fenugreek, mugwort, nigella. You can have the jealous seeds, that's Lebanon mist, lady's mantle, and then brambles, which are blackberry or raspberry. The leaves of those plants can be used for tea. And then also, if you're doing some spring gardening and you're finding some weeds, don't throw them quite into the compost pile yet. You can actually harvest these for some really beneficial teas. Stinging nettle, we're pretty much out of that season, but just so you know, that's a really good medicinal plant. Burdock, dandelion, chickweed, violets, and mullein. That's a picture of mullein down there. Okay, I hope I inspired you to want to grow some more herbs in your life. And the freshest cup is the one you grow yourself. So instead of having to rely on your cupboard for tea that you don't know when that was grown, you can get a really fresh cup with the best nutrients in it right from your own backyard or container. So thank you for listening. This has been kind of strange. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I hope you enjoyed this.
We're still here, MJ.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Thank you for being here with me through this experience. And I'm going to stay on to answer more questions, but if you think of questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to the master gardeners in your area. If you're from Champaign, you can click on this because the link is not open, but Google Champaign County Master Gardener Horticultural Hotline and you'll get a form. Fill that out and master gardeners will be glad to answer your questions. And I edited this, but thank you, Rhonda. She made this originally, so just wanted to give her a shout out. All right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that was excellent.
Great.
Yeah, it's no, you killed it, MJ. I really appreciated how you talked about there at the beginning that the tea garden is not just the plants themselves, but you can also create a space where you can enjoy the fruits of your harvest there with a nice fresh cup of tea. And then also you have excellent knowledge of all those plants, and a lot of those we may already have in our gardens or in our yards, and just never thought to harvest them for the use of tea. And I also really thought it was cool how you showed all the medicinal purposes of the tea, what they could help with and whatnot. I learned a whole bunch that I never knew before, and I hope others out there, I hope they learned some, and I know they did. So really appreciate it, MJ. If you have any questions out there, feel free to down below type those questions for us. See if we can answer a few questions. We got some comments coming in as well. I'm not sure if you know Kaylee. She said, yes, MJ, best master gardener in all of the land.
I'm just seeing all of these comments. Yeah, wanted to mention Black's. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, sis.
Hannah asked, what do you add to your Tulsi tea, or do you just drink it as is? Do you add anything to it?
I don't add anything to it. I love it just the way it is. You can add honey if you want. It's really mild. It's not bitter at all. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Barb asked, for those of you watching, maybe you want to tune back in and kind of pause. Maybe you wanted to pause on a particular slide where MJ was talking about a certain plant. She asked, will this be loaded on the YouTube channel for future viewing? Yes, it's going to be available. The recording will be available immediately after the program's over, and it'll be available on our Facebook and YouTube pages. So feel free to check that out afterwards. Brenda's volunteer. Hey, Brenda, a volunteer with us. She said black swallowtail butterfly caterpillars use fennel and dill. So we're not the only ones who get to appreciate the benefits of these awesome herbs and plants for tea. Linda said, thank you. Appreciate you putting this together and sharing your knowledge. Brenda, I like a sprig of mint in with a black tea. So sharing some ideas out there. Linda said, "What can I grow that would be similar to a black tea?" Any recommendations, MJ?
Yeah, that's hard. I would recommend any of those bitter teas that I mentioned. Um, I think, maybe thyme tea if you steep it for long enough. Usually Earl Grey, which is my favorite kind of black tea, that is like black tea plus thyme. The flavors that are there. So yeah, I would recommend using a thyme tea or maybe even the bergamot tea, the bee balm. I think that'd be similar to black tea. Yeah, for those two.
Judy. Hey, Judy, another volunteer with the district. She asked, "Do you have any recommendations for mixes? Maybe mixing some of these plants together, anything
Mhm.
like that?"
Yeah, mint. I would maybe do like a citrusy mint situation with lemon
Ooh,
balm and peppermint. And then also, I love growing like apple mint. I didn't mention that. Um, but there's like all different kinds of mints, and those can all be used for tea. So I like the citrus and the minty flavor. That's like
no,
really
that's
nice
a
iced tea.
that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll have to try that out. John, one of the last plants you mentioned, tree. How long would it take to grow a linden tree? How long would it take for it to mature, you think, MJ? Do you know?
Oh, I'm actually not quite sure. My parents just planted a linden tree in their backyard,
Oh,
and
cool.
I think it was like 10 years old, and that was about like 20 tall or so. Um, you'd have to do some more research on that, John. I'm sorry, I can't tell you, but you can buy if you want to buy trees that are big and already flowering. You can do that. They're just pretty
Sure.
expensive.
Susan asked, can you recommend a book or, maybe are there some websites out there for any viewers who, want to, check out more resources? I know you mentioned the extension office, check out your local extension, but you got any other resources you can recommend, MJ?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's so much information. There's a lot of information on herbal remedies, and I just want to warn people that a lot of those is like snake oil salesmen. Try and find resources on like .edu websites, research-backed stuff. All of all of the research that I presented is like research-based. So that's what we do here as master gardeners. We make sure we're giving Bible information to the public. There are two books that I love and I actually got from like a secondhand store. This is The Complete Book of Herbs and Spices by Sarah Garland. This is written in like the 70s.
Nice.
This is just like an herb book. And then this is another book that I was reading. I bought these mostly for the pictures, but this is The Complete Book of Herbs. And this doesn't even have an author, I think. It's from Courage Books. So,
Okay.
yeah, The Complete Book of Herbs and Spices. Anything that looks like this, or like these kind of books, would be helpful. And yeah, there's so much info.
Brittany says one of my favorite books for herbal remedies and just general info on garden herbs to grow is Homegrown Herbs by Tammy Hartung. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, so we're working together here, sharing information together. Yeah. Check out those books that MJ recommended. Maybe hit up your local library, see what they might have, in their cooking or gardening sections. I'm sure there's a lot of resources there. And then of course, there's tons of stuff online. But as MJ mentioned, make sure you check out places that are research based and research backed and not those snake oil salesmen trying to get you.
And I do want to give a shout out to Delight Flower Farm. They grow a lot of that's where I learned about a lot of these plants. And they have a great Instagram page where the owner does a lot of public outreach and just explaining of what different herbs are. And we had an herbalist on our team last year who taught me a lot. She was a certified herbalist, so they're a good resource if you're in the Champaign-Urbana area.
Yeah, I would recommend an Insta follow for them. They got some, like you said, great information, great pictures, as well. Yeah. Nice local farm around here. MJ, thank you so much. Like I said, you did an excellent job. I learned so much tonight, and you've inspired me. I think I might have to. At least one. There's probably more out there. So, I'll have to throw some of these in the ground and see what works and get back to you. But really appreciate you presenting tonight. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to all the viewers out there for tuning in.
Hello, I am Michelle Roberts. I am the Program Director of the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program at Parkland College. And I'm excited to be here today to introduce you to CUI's exercise. And what this is just a couple little exercises you can do from a seated position. And that we're going to work on breath and some stretches. So sit back in your chair, your back against the chair, feet flat on the floor. And I'm going to have you take your arms out. Your arms are like your wings of the owl. The owl is part of our logo. So your wings of the owl, you're going to bring them out to the side. And you're going to bring them up and take a deep breath in as you go up. Only go as far as you comfortably can go. No pain with this. Breathe in. Turn your palms down and breathe out. And move slowly. We're going to do that again. And you're going to breathe in peace, joy, and then let out anything negative. You're going to breathe in wisdom of the owl. And just let it all out. Then I want to have you roll your arms up, bring your arms, your wings back into a circle. Get those shoulders moving. Breathe in and out. In and out. Think about just spreading those back of your wings out. Okay. And one more. Good. And now we're just going to take another deep breath in with your wings. And breathe out. Another thing that owl does is he looks around, right? So you're going to just look around your environment to the right. Just look at what's around there. To the left. Just moving only your head as comfortably as you can. Back to center. You can look up. As long as it doesn't cause you to be dizzy, be careful with that. And look down. Come back up. And then lean your head to one side as well as comfortable. And then the other side. And that is your CUI's exercise. I hope you felt some blood moving through your arms and you got good deep breaths and you have a little peace and wisdom. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for tuning into CUI's TV. We hope you enjoyed the show. This video can be accessed anytime on youtube.com. In the YouTube search bar, type in UPTV6 and look for their microphone logo. We hope you will join us again next week for more local, engaging content designed specifically for Champaign County older adults. Take care and stay safe.